Well, good thing science fiction is the most fun to read. So even a lazy person wants to read science fiction generally. Got some nice people here too. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to give it one more minute. Holly, happy, a bit introverted. Nice. Happiness is good. I like the happy. I'm like ridiculously happy and optimistic and upbeat all of the time. So you guys are going to have to deal with me smiling at you over Zoom if you come every week. Let's see. Carolyn is talkative, lazy, and ambivert. Ooh, I don't know what that means. Carolyn, what does ambivert mean? Oh, ambivert, both. It means that you're extroverted and introverted. Is that right? You can unmute yourself if you want, if you don't want to type it. Yeah. All right. Never heard that term before. I like it. We have Matthew is happy, adventurous, energetic. Matthew, yes, you and I are on the same wavelength. Love it. All right. It is 10:05. Philip, should I get started? Huh? Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to take over screen control here. So let me share my screen with you guys. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you for saying that. Okay. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Samantha Morse. You can call me Dr. Morse. And I am going to be teaching you about science fiction. This will be our weekly reading club, and maybe I'll just get into it. This is my favorite genre. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm going to make you like science fiction as much as I do, if you don't already love it already. So, what are we going to do today? Number one, really quickly, I'm going to talk about what science fiction actually is. So I'm going to give a quick overview of the types of books we'll read if you choose to fully enroll in this class. Number two, we'll do some personal introductions. I want everyone to get to know each other. And for me, what's really important is that this is not the Dr. Samantha Morse show. This is your show too. I want you guys to participate and talk, feel comfortable with each other, and have fun. So we'll do a little personal intros to get that started. Number three, we'll actually jump into a science fiction book. It's called House of the Scorpion. It's a totally awesome novel about cloning, and we're going to start reading it today. So last thing, we will read and analyze chapter 1 together. And this novel is so good, I bet you're going to want to keep reading after class. At least that's my pitch to you. All right, let's get started. So, what is science fiction? I like to think of it as the literature of what if. Oh, I see that chat going here. Okay, yeah, sounds good. Okay, so science fiction, I like to think of it as the literature of what if. Like, what if there were aliens? What if you could travel through time? What if you could go to another galaxy? What if there was virtual reality that you could live in permanently? So all of these what if questions, that's what makes science fiction. The author is imagining how life could be different. That's the purpose of this genre. But it's different from fantasy. So science fiction and fantasy are both literature of what if, but science fiction is a little different because science fiction is based on scientific fact. So what makes science fiction different from fantasy is that science fiction novels could actually happen. Like, we could actually go to space if we built the technology to do it. Whereas fantasy, it takes place in an alternative world. It's pure imagination. And sometimes it can look familiar to our real world, but there might be magic or other species or talking animals, things like that, which couldn't be a reality based on scientific principle. So that's the difference between science fiction and fantasy, even though there can be some overlap, and we'll talk about overlap later. So just to give you a sense of what kind of subjects could fall under the category of science fiction, there's cloning, which is what we will be reading about today. outer space, aliens, virtual reality, time travel, AI, new technology, new diseases, experiments, teleportation, mind control, parallel universes, robots, alternative history. All of these things and many, many more can be science fiction. So what I want to do very quickly, we won't spend too much time doing this, but I want to just get to know the people who are here. So I'm going to call on you and I would like you to, so is the SCP universe sci-fi or fantasy? That's a good question, Richard. Tell me, will you unmute yourself and tell me what you think? Do you think the SCP universe is sci-fi or fantasy? Give me, based on what I just said, what do you think personally?
I don't know whether it's sci-fi or fantasy because there's a lot of realistic things in it, along with a lot of realistic backstories, and it takes place in a realistic futuristic lab. But the creatures in it, or the beings in it, could be real, but sometimes may not be real.
Yes.
So I don't know.
It's an amazing question. And I'm so sorry, my dog is barking. This is my dog, Katara. She's actually named after Avatar: The Last Airbender, if anybody watches that. She is now going to be silenced. But Richard, I think your analysis was spot on. And you showed how, yes, these qualities are science fiction. These other qualities are fantasy. And you know what? Good authors can actually borrow from both genres. And so you did a great job of explaining, like, yeah, part of this can be sci-fi and part can be fantasy. And in some of the works that I will recommend to you, that's the case with those as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so let's move into some quick introductions, shall we? So I'm going to call on you, and I just want you to say your name, your grade, and very quickly, your favorite science fiction book or movie that you've read or watched recently. So you can say a book, you can say a movie, you can say a TV series, anything science fiction that's your favorite or something that you read or watched recently. So let me give everybody a minute just to think about it. And if nothing comes to mind, you have no idea, you can just say, I can't think of anything. And that's perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone just a minute to think. And my Zoom screen is being difficult, so I cannot see the participant list. Hold on, give me 1 second here. Yes, you can, for the person who just messaged me. That's no problem at all. Okay, here we go. I'll go like this. Let's see. Holly Chen, would you like to go first?
Sure. My name is Holly Chen. I'm in 6th grade. And my favorite science fiction book or movie, I just watched a science fiction movie last night called A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes, I love that book so much. Was the movie good, Holly?
Yes, it was.
Okay, I'll have to watch it. Thanks for the recommendation. Also, just a request too, when you are speaking, it would be great if you could turn your camera on, and I would appreciate cameras on for the whole of the session. And it's perfectly all right if you need to drink some water, you need to go to the bathroom and turn your camera off, that's just fine, but it's nice to be able to see your faces. Okay, so what about Matthew? Could I have you introduce yourself?
Hi, hello, my name is Matthew. I'm in grade 8, and my favorite science fiction book is probably The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, or like Martians Invaders.
Okay, sorry everyone, Matthew's my new favorite student. Awesome. Jerry, what about you?
My name is Jerry. I'm in 7th grade, and I haven't read any science fiction books yet.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to introduce you to one today. Carolyn, what about you? Carolyn Sun.
My name is Carolyn Sun.
and probably my favorite sci-fi book is The Lunar Chronicles. It's a series.
Oh, yes, so good. Good choice. Andrew Zong.
My name is Andrew. I'm in 5th grade and I haven't really read any science fiction books.
Cool. Excited to introduce you. Let's see. Carolyn Sun.
You just called on me.
Oh, sorry. The thing keeps changing. Okay. What about Sharon Way?
So my name is I'm using my mom's account, but my name is Chase. I'm in grade 6, and I watched a sci-fi movie recently. It's called Finch. It's basically there's like I don't know, but yeah, it's basically, wow, I'm really bad.
No, that's okay. I'll make sure. I haven't seen it myself, so I'll make sure to watch it. That sounds very cool. Okay, how about Jing Pang? All right, no response there. That's okay. So let's do these fast. I just want to hear quickly from everyone. So what about Eiling? Eiling, did I say that right? No. How about Jane Wu?
My name is Jen, and I'm in 6th grade, and I don't read any science fiction book because first of all, I can't find one. Second of all, it's not my favorite Jen.
All right. I like that. Challenge accepted. It might not be your favorite by the end, but hopefully I can give you some books that you like. What about Richard Ma?
My name is Richard. I'm in 6th grade, and the most recent science fiction movie I watched was quite some years ago. It's called Agent Cody Banks. I watched it in a hotel on like the hotel TV.
Yeah.
Traveling a while ago.
It's a good, that's a classic movie. I like that one. Nice, Richard. What about Jeffrey?
Hello, my name is Jeffrey. I'm in grade 8, and probably my most favorite science fiction book is The Wild Robot. I've read that quite a while back. It's not that popular, and but I just like it, and the book that follows after it as well.
Love it. I love a good robot book. Nice. What about Sean?
My name is Sean. I'm in grade 8, and I don't really have any favorite science fiction book.
That's perfectly all right. What about Jaden?
My name is Jaden, and I'm in 5th grade. My favorite science fiction book is The Wild Robot.
Okay, so we heard it wasn't that popular, but it looks like there are two people who like it. I love it. Sophie, what about you?
My name is Sophie. I'm in grade 6, and my favorite sci-fi book, I guess, is sort of The Giver. I guess it's kind of sci-fi.
Yes, I totally think The Giver is sci-fi, and that is one of my favorite books as well. Wonderful. So let's see. Sophie, what about Valentina?
My name is Valentina. I'm in 6th grade, and does Rick Riordan count as science fiction?
Does what?
Rick Riordan.
I think so. Yeah, we're going to count it. Absolutely.
Shadow of Power.
Nice. Fantastic. What about Angela? Angela, are you and Valentina sisters?
Yeah.
Amazing. What about you, Angela?
My name is Angela, and I'm in grade 4, but I'm not sure if I have any favorite science fiction book or movie.
That's all right. Okay, maybe we'll give you one today. Maybe House of the Scorpion will be your favorite. Let's see. What about Liliana?
Hi, my name is Liliana. I'm in grade 7, and my most recent and kind of favorite science fiction movie I watched is Short Circuit. It's like a comedy movie.
Nice. Oh, I haven't seen that, but that sounds interesting. I'll have to check it out. Let's see. What about Kevin?
Hello, my name is Kevin. I'm in the 8th grade, and my favorite science fiction book would probably be Dune.
Yes, Dune is so good. Did you see the movie?
Not yet.
No, I haven't either. I love the books though. Nice. Hanya, what about you? No, Hanya? All right. Oh, yes. I think you might be muted. All right. Okay, so the screens keep jumping around. So if I didn't call on you, my sincere apologies, but let's keep going because I'm so excited to now talk about science fiction with you guys. You have good taste. This is going to be a good class. Okay, so just to introduce House of the Scorpion, which is the story that we're going to be reading. It is a best-selling novel by a woman named Nancy Farmer, and it's about cloning in a future Earth. The story takes place on the US-Mexico border, but the countries have different names, but it'll be quickly obvious to you which country is which. So really simply, this is a coming of age story about a young boy, I think starting at age 6 years old, who learns a terrible secret and has to decide how he wants to live his life. What we are going to do now is I am going to drop a PDF into the chat, so you're going to be able to follow along. And I'm going to read sections out loud from the very first chapter. And there are lines where you're going to see that I'm going to stop, and then I will pause and ask you guys questions periodically. Okay, so let me just drop this into the chat. Let's see here. All right, it's loading now. All right, so in the chat, you should see House of the Scorpion as a PDF. So if you click that, you should be able to open it. And can somebody—
I don't see it.
You're not seeing it in the chat. My assistant, can you help with that? Let's see. So are you able to open the chat?
Yeah.
So Liliana doesn't see it either, but Matthew sees it. Okay, so let me just try putting it in there again.
I'm on my sister's phone, so that might be the reason.
I get it. Okay, so if you're on a phone and you can't see it, you can't download it. I know, Matthew, the text is extreme. It's like weirdly large, but it is easy on the eyes. So even if you can't follow along and read it, I'm going to be reading it out loud. So all you need to do is listen. But for those of you who are able to download it, that is great. So I'm going to just start reading the very first section. And then I'm going to ask some questions after the section is over. Okay, so it begins in the beginning. In the beginning, there were 36 of them, 36 droplets of life, so tiny that Eduardo could see them only under a microscope. He studied them anxiously in the darkened room. Water bubbled through tubes that snaked around the warm, humid walls. Air was sucked into growth chambers. A dull red light— a dull red light shone on the faces of the workers as they watched their own arrays of little glass dishes. Each one contained a drop of life. Eduardo moved his dishes, one after the other, under the lens of the microscope. The cells were perfect, or so it seemed. Each was furnished with all it needed to grow. So much knowledge was hidden in that tiny world. Even Eduardo, who understood the process very well, was awed. The cell already understood what color hair it was to have, how tall it would become, and even whether it preferred spinach to broccoli. It might even have a hazy desire for music or crossword puzzles. All of that was hidden in the droplet. All right, and that black line is where I'm going to stop for now. And I'm going to ask you guys some questions. So now I'm going to take back control of the screen share. 4 questions. All right. So can I have a volunteer? And I'm not going to call, you could just feel free to unmute yourself. Could somebody unmute themselves and say, what do you think Eduardo's job is based on what we just read?
He's probably a scientist.
He's probably a scientist. Perfect. Yes, Eduardo is a scientist. You are correct. Now, can somebody else tell me what words are used to describe Eduardo's emotions? Can someone maybe point out some words? Yeah, go for it.
Interested.
Interested. Very good, Valentina. Yes. Someone else give me another word.
Odd. Odd.
Odd. Yes. What makes him odd?
By the process of life, he says he was odd.
Yeah. Fantastic. Let's see. Anxious. Yes, Matthew. Why does he seem anxious? What part makes you think that?
Well, maybe because maybe like the cells are really tiny, so they can like die. So he's just watching them really carefully.
Yes, perfect.
Like the cells are really precious to him.
Oh my gosh, you nailed it. We're going to keep reading and you're going to find out exactly how precious they are. You guys rock. Okay, and now maybe somebody else. Can somebody else tell me, how can we immediately tell that this is a science fiction novel?
I think it's because like it's realistic, but also like you wouldn't really study cells and like know that like they would prefer broccoli to like spinach or whatever.
Yes, exactly. It's showing us microscopes. It's showing us cells. It's introducing us to a scientist. Like all of this, it's very realistic and it's all about the use of technology. And technology is very important for science fiction. All right, so let's keep going. And actually, I will switch my screen over so that you guys can follow along with me. Okay. Finally, the round outlines quivered and lines appeared, dividing the cells in two. Eduardo sighed. It was going to be all right. He watched the samples grow, and then he carefully moved them to the incubator. But it wasn't all right. Something about the food, the heat, the light was wrong, and the man didn't know what it was. Very quickly, over half of them died. There were only 15 now, and Eduardo felt a cold lump in his stomach. If he failed, he would be sent to the farms. And then what would become of Anna and the children and his father, who was so old? Okay, so let's look at next questions. So this is building off of, I believe, what Matthew observed. He observed that Eduardo was anxious in the first section. What about in this section? Can somebody else tell me what is Eduardo's emotional state like in this section?
I think he's very nervous because if he does something wrong and like all the cells die, then he's gonna have to move to a farm with his like children, and then his father's gonna be like,
perfect. Yes, thank you, Valentina. Perfect. Now, can somebody else, someone maybe who hasn't spoken yet, could you tell me, based on his reaction, what do you think the farms are? Do you think this is a regular farm, or do you think there's more to this farm than maybe meets the eye? Somebody new, someone who hasn't spoken yet. Anyone?
Probably a farm that's like really labor intensive.
Perfect, Kevin. You're exactly right. So we can tell by this anxiety that he has that the stakes are pretty high. He can't mess up. And there are people relying on him. Okay. Let's keep reading then. It's okay, said Lisa, so close by that Eduardo jumped. She was one of the senior technicians. She had worked for so many years in the dark. Her face was chalk white, and her blue veins were visible through her skin. How can it be okay? Eduardo said. The cells were frozen over 100 years ago. They can't be as healthy as samples taken yesterday. That long? The man marveled. But some of them should grow, Lisa said sternly. So Eduardo began to worry again. and for a month, everything went well. The day came when he implanted the tiny embryos in the brood cows. The cows were lined up, patiently waiting. They were fed by tubes, and their bodies were exercised by giant metal arms that grasped their legs and flexed them as though the cows were walking through an endless field. Now and then an animal moved its jaw in an attempt to chew cud. Did they dream of dandelions? Eduardo wondered. Did they feel a phantom wind blowing tall grass against their legs? Their brains were filled with quiet joy from implants in their skulls. Were they aware of the children growing in their wombs? Perhaps the cows hated what had been done to them because they certainly rejected the embryos. One after another, the infants, at this point no larger than minnows, died. Okay, let me change my screen. And new questions. So somebody new, someone who hasn't spoken yet. In what kind of animal does Eduardo implant the embryo?
A cow.
Perfect. Yes, a cow. And somebody else now tell me, are the embryos cows or humans? And which word kind of lets you know that?
I think if they're humans, because he said like babies, kind of, not like calves.
You nailed it. So good. Yes, he says, were they aware of the children growing in their wombs? Just like you said, yeah, children, babies. So this is a human word. So we know for some weird reason, human embryos are being implanted in the cow. Excellent close reading there. And somebody else now, what are the two types of machines or technology we see in relation to the cows? Like what kind of technology is going on with the whole cow situation? Someone give me one.
Robots that exercise the cows.
Yeah, we have these weird robots that are exercising them. Very good. So that's number one. Number two. That feed them. Yes. Okay, that's another one. So there are three. Give me a third one.
I think the other one was like the one that implanted quiet joy into their skulls.
Yes. Perfect. Yes. So they have these implants. So something that's supposed to be making them happy. So they're being artificially moved. They have these things in their brains making them artificially happy. You guys, great close reading. This is really, really important for the setup of the whole novel. So you're already getting some important clues right here. Okay, let me go back to this one. Until there was only one. So only one hasn't died. Eduardo slept badly at night. He cried out in his sleep, and Anna asked what was the matter. He couldn't tell her. He couldn't say that if this last embryo died, he would be stripped of his job. He would be sent to the farms, and she, Anna, and their children and his father would be cast out to walk the hot, dusty roads. But that one embryo grew until it was clearly a being with arms and legs and a sweet, dreaming face. Eduardo watched it through scanners. You hold my life in your hands, he told the infant. As though it could hear, the infant flexed its tiny body in the womb until it was turned toward the man. And Eduardo felt an unreasoning stir of affection. Okay, let's analyze this a little bit more. Can I have somebody who hasn't spoken yet define unreasoning? And if you don't know off the top of your head, you have a computer, you can totally feel free to look it up. That is not cheating. Someone give me the definition of unreasoning.
I think unreasoning is like, sorry.
I love that musical accompaniment, Liliana.
Unreasoning is like unexplainable.
If you want, you can type it in the chat. That works totally fine too. Let's see here, chat. Nice. Yes, unreasoning, exactly. is illogical. Sex is better. Unable to be explained. Yes, perfect, everyone. So he has this illogical, this unable to be explained stir of affection. I know, can somebody else in the chat define affection?
Like somebody something.
Yes, exactly. Affection is like feelings of like love, feeling of caring, like a parent feels affection for their child. Exactly. So Eduardo is feeling this unreasoning stir of affection. Can somebody just make a guess? You can write it in the chat or you can say it, you can unmute yourself. Why do you think Eduardo feels an unreasoning stir of affection for the child? Ooh, Richard, love that. Possession and need for control. Someone else?
I guess it's because technically he created the child, so it's almost like it's his child.
Yes.
So he feels like, well, I'm like your parent almost.
Amazing, Matthew. Yes. Liliana, his life depends on the child. Yes. Jeffrey, this world already feels so twisted. Yes, it is a twisted world. You guys are getting it. Okay, so there's some weird stuff going on, right? Like he's kind of feeling he loves this child, but he knows it's illogical. Okay, let's keep going. We're going to finish this chapter now, and then we're going to see just how twisted it gets. Let me go switch the screen over. And here we are. When the day came, Eduardo received the newborn into his hands as though it were his own child. His eyes blurred as he laid it in a crib and reached for the needle that would blunt its intelligence. "Don't fix that one," said Lisa, hastily catching his arm. "It's a Mateo Alacran. They're always left intact." "Have I done you a favor?" thought Eduardo, as he watched the baby turn its head toward the bustling nurses in their starched white uniforms. "Will you thank me for it later?" And that, my friends, is the end of chapter 1. So let's do some final questions here. So just to be clear, is the baby Eduardo's own child?
No.
No.
Correct. Okay. Anyone make a guess? Whose child is it?
Someone's child. I don't know.
No one.
Someone's child. What name? Can anyone say what name you get?
Wait, didn't they say like it was like 500 years ago?
Yes, very good. Okay, we know. So it was frozen from somebody 100 years ago. Very good. Amazing. It's Holly. Holly gets it. It's Mateo Alacran. Yes, exactly right. So good. So good. Mateo Alacran. That's fantastic. Now, what normally happens to these babies grown in the lab?
They die.
Yep, they either die. What if they live? What happens to them?
And get their intelligence blunted with the needle.
Yes. Yep, they do some needle and they take away their intelligence. So when this baby is left intact, can anyone tell me what that means for this baby to be left intact?
Like they don't like artificially take away their like stuff, memory. I don't know.
Perfect. Yes. So their intelligence is not blunted. So this is going to be a fully functional, intelligent baby that's going to grow up into a human. Ooh, Matthew, I love this hypothesis you wrote. No, its name is Mateo Alacran. So maybe Mateo Alacran means that it's a type of baby that falls into the category of Mateo Alacran. Yes, Matthew, very perceptive. In the next chapter, we're going to find out exactly what category Mateo Alacrans are. So my very last question for you guys, and this one is totally open to interpretation. Ooh, Carolyn, good guess. You said it sounds like Latin. It is actually Spanish. And anyone here speak Spanish? Does anyone know what Alacran means in Spanish? It means scorpion. Alacran is scorpion. So this is the house of the scorpion. Okay, last question. This is totally open to interpretation, but I'm curious if anybody has thoughts on why do you think Eduardo wonders, have I done you a favor? Can anyone describe maybe what his thought process is about that when he asks if the baby would think that he did him a favor?
I think because he kind of revived it from like 100 years ago.
Yeah, so maybe it's like, have I done you a favor by bringing you to life? Fantastic. Someone else give me another interpretation.
Maybe it's like I have done you a favor because I didn't blunt your intelligence, make you not smart.
Yeah. And okay, so we all want to be smart, right? Like that's why you guys are here. You're trying to get smarter. So why do you think it might be better in some cases to have your intelligence blunted or to not be as smart?
Like control. If you're ignorant, like fall into like someone's like power. It's easier to work. It's easier to control you.
Yes, nailed it 100%. If you are in conditions that are so terrible that if you were a regularly intelligent person, it would be unbearable. In those situations, it would be better to have no intelligence because then you could be in kind of ignorance.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of Star Wars, the clones when they were being made.
Yes.
They were cloned off of like Jango Fett or something like, but then like they changed the DNA or something so that the clones would just like be obedient to everything. So like they will obey their orders immediately. They won't like question the orders.
Yes, Matthew, fantastic. So good. And I love that connection to Star Wars too, bringing that in. So good. Okay. So you guys are doing a lot of thinking now. This is the setup. This is chapter 1 of a novel. What I want you guys to do now is 10 minutes of writing. So we're going to do some creative writing now. And I want to bring that into the class because you guys have some great ideas. So on your computer, or if you have a notepad, you can write this by hand. Imagine that you get to write chapter 2 of the novel. You get to tell the story of that baby from chapter 1, except now that baby is 6 years old. So the baby is 6 in chapter 2. Here are some ideas for you to base your story on, but feel free to write based on your own imagination if none of these prompts kind of inspire you. What's the boy's name? What's his nickname? Is there any special meaning to the name? Why? Imagine who is raising the boy and what their relationship is like. Imagine what the boy likes to do for fun and maybe who he does that activity with. Imagine how that boy will celebrate his upcoming birthday. Imagine how that boy might get into trouble or do something he's not supposed to do. So those are all potential prompts that you can write about. You can write about one, you can write about a couple, or you can write about anything from your imagination. Remember as you're writing that a story does two things. It combines description and it combines action. So you want the reader to be able to imagine what the character and their world looks like, and that's description. But you also want to make exciting and interesting things happen to the character. That's action. Consider using dialogue sometimes to show how that character interacts with other characters. So it is 10:41 right now. We're going to come back together at 10:50. So you just can begin to start writing a story, maybe taking some notes, plotting out what would happen in chapter 2.
Wait, do we just like DM it or like?
Oh, nope. So I will ask for a volunteer at the end. So you don't have to write it in the chat or anything. This is just on your own computer or for you privately. This is nothing to submit or show to people yet. Yes. And I won't make anybody share who doesn't want to.
I'm on the phone right now. That's so simple. That's weird.
If you're on the phone, no problem. You have a couple of options. If you have a piece of paper that you can write on, you can write there. You can even go into the note feature on your phone. That's not in Zoom or anything, but go into the note feature and you can just start typing it up as if you were writing a text message.
I just realized that if they could put implants in cows, couldn't they put implants in babies so that like instead of eating food, they could just put some like light display that looks like a piece of cake, and when you eat it, the implants just gives you the electronic signals that make you taste cake, but you're actually not eating the cake. It just looks like you're eating cake. So basically, they could like, because you know all the stuff like your taste, your five senses, right? They're all based on electric signals. So they could just simulate those electric signals, and you're basically actually not doing anything.
Oh my gosh, Matthew, you are genius. I love where your head's going. I want you to incorporate that into the story for chapter 2. I think that's absolutely a brilliant insight and based on scientific facts. So you are thinking like a scientific author right now.
But I thought like that special baby didn't have any like weird implant thing though.
Right. Oh, that's right. Well, so maybe not him. Maybe he's interacting with a clone who does. So maybe maybe it's his birthday and he has a piece of cake or something and he tastes it and it tastes like one thing to him, but it tastes like something else to another person. That could be interesting. Kevin, how do people in comas survive? Well, I think they do have like the electric signal still going in their brain, but it's just like, you know, more toned down. Oh, how do they nourish them? I think they have a feeding tube. And that's why they're in the hospital and they have like a feeding tube. I know, it is pretty cool. Science. Great question, Sophie. Which perspective do we write in? You could write in first person, so from the perspective of the boy, but you could also do third person omniscient, meaning like outside and kind of narrating what happens to the boy. So Sophie, you get to choose. That's a great artistic question.
But this baby was cloned, right?
Correct, yes. Oh no, Carolyn, I see your audio isn't working. That's perfectly all right. Feel free to type anything you need in the chat. Oh, it is working. Good. All right, everyone, take 2 more minutes to just start jotting down ideas, whether you're actually writing the story or if you're just taking notes about things that you would like to write about. Either is perfectly fine. We'll come back together in 2 minutes. All right, I'd love to come back together now and hear from you guys. Would anybody be interested in just sharing anything that they had any ideas about? If you felt like actually reading a little bit of your story, cool, or if someone just wants to share their idea of what they think happens in chapter 2. I'd love to maybe get 2 volunteers. Yeah, Valentina, go for it.
For me, his father, like quote unquote father, I have no idea what his name is, but he didn't learn much because I think him like growing up, like I don't think he like the main character cared about him so much anymore because like he lived and that's all that matters. So like I think like if he had a normal life and he like went to school, the people would like bully him a lot, I guess. Because like they didn't know that he was from literally 100 years ago, so he think he was stupid like by not knowing anything. Because like he didn't know about like electronics, plastic, paper, whatever.
Oh my gosh, Valentina, I love that. That's so creative and actually kind of spookily. That does happen later in the story in its own kind of way. You'll see. I can't wait to talk about it with you later. Fantastic. Chase, what about you? What was your idea?
So my idea, I made it so that the kid he got like adopted by some random person, and basically the random person is treating the kid not too well. And then basically the person just using the kid as a slave, and then yeah, that's where I stopped.
Fantastic idea, Chase. And you are also spot on in some ways that you will discover soon. So very good. Jane, what about you?
I thought that the boy will grow up with the guy. What's his name again? The person who like in there. I don't know pronounce his name. Probably grew up with his family. Probably grew up and and he made the child believe that he was his real father, even though he's an orphan from 100 years ago.
Oh, so good. So Eduardo adopts him. So the scientist who made him adopts him and kind of keeps the secret. So good. That's really interesting. I love that. Anyone else want to volunteer? Any other ideas? Yeah, Matthew. Matthew, and then Sophie, you're next.
So my name is Cole and Labo. I'm raised by Mr. Eduardo. He keeps me in a white room all day, gives me food and gaming computer and VR headset. I don't have much to do besides playing Bloons TD12 and Z-Box game. On my birthday, I met a guy that looked totally like me, except that he was totally dumb and just stared at me with his pale white eyes. It totally creeped me out, so I told Eduardo to take him out, but nothing happened except that the weird zombie guy blinked for the first time in 5 minutes. I wonder what I'm doing here and why I always get cold shivers down my spine every once in a while.
Ooh. I don't know about you guys. That just gave me shivers. The cold white eyes, the not blinking. That was so interesting. So obviously he was encountering another clone of the Mateo Alacran variety. So good.
No, it's not a Mateo Alacran guy because he's really dumb and he just doesn't do anything.
Yes. Okay. I see. That's so good. Oh my gosh, Matthew, I can't wait for you to keep reading. Amazing. Sophie, what about you? Would you like to share?
Yeah. So mine is about he got adopted. And then like the person who adopted him has like another child. And like the other child just like starts bullying him, and he has like a horrible life.
Yeah. Oh, so there's some bullying involved. Yes. Oh my gosh. Just you wait, Sophie, for the level of bullying this poor boy endures in the next couple chapters. So good. Anyone else want to share their ideas? Yeah, Jeffrey, go for it.
So I have an idea where he's like the only and one of the few and actually left intelligent children. And so he spent his whole 6 years in a nursery being taken care of, along with a bunch of other of the only smart children. And one day, being chased by one of the caretakers, thinking it was a game of tag because children do that. He finds a way out and ends up finding out exactly how twisted the world is and how everyone else that didn't get to keep intelligence winded up. Something about the farm as well, which I have no clue what it is, but like I guess we'll find out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh my gosh. Really, really good. Jeffrey, you bring up a lot of great points there. And I want to bring up something Carolyn said. Carolyn said what I've been describing the story, it sounds kind of stereotypical, especially the bullying. And so one thing I kind of want to talk about is the formula behind genres of literature. So science fiction, coming of age stories, sometimes they can seem stereotypical in that they're all treating the same ideas: bullying, inequities in society, kind of morality of right and wrong. Yeah, those are maybe all cliche or stereotypical ideas, as Carolyn points out. But what I believe is that a good work of literature can take a stereotypical idea and present it in a new and exciting way that makes you really interested in exploring it on a deeper level. And that's what I think this novel does. And I'm very curious to see if you guys think the same thing. Ooh, Matthew has added some things. He says, oh, and he has a chip that makes it hard for him to do something in the, ooh, all right. He's controlled. Yes, so good. Okay, you guys are absolutely amazing. So I just want to do some final slides and just give you a big picture overview before we end class for today. Let me share my screen one more time. You guys are some good writers. So first of all, I hope you enjoyed the class. And if you want to throw in the chat any feedback, things you liked, things you didn't like, what you'd like to see more of, I will definitely take it into consideration for future classes. So if you were to sign up for this class for real, today was our trial. Next week, we would start for real. So if you sign up for this class, we will discuss new chapters from House of the Scorpion every week. So next week will still kind of be an intro stuff. There won't be any homework because it's the first class. But after that, I will assign a couple of chapters for you to read at home of House of the Scorpion. Never anything too much, nothing too crazy, but just enough so that you can come to class and we'll be ready to discuss the novel. So class will be spent talking and sometimes doing a little bit of writing. There will never be any writing homework outside of class. Though, if you like the prompt that I give you, like if you were excited about the creative story you began writing today, I wholly encourage you to continue writing after class and to practice those creative skills. You're always welcome to do that. It is never required. Also, every week I will recommend a science fiction TV series or movie that you can watch for fun during the week. And you can totally talk about it with me before or after class. Again, these are totally optional. It's not required, but I'm just trying to expose you to as much fun science fiction as I can because I love the genre. And I always welcome recommendations from you guys as well. So with that said, Dr. Morse's weekly sci-fi TV and movie recommendation is the TV series Lost in Space, which is on Netflix. So I think they just had a new season come out too, but it's a very good, wholesome science fiction show. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see all of your lovely faces. Any feedback anyone want to share with me? Things that you like, things that you would like to see more of in future classes?
Hi, could you reshare the PDF?
I can absolutely reshare the PDF, yes. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share two versions.